I live in a city that never sleeps, in a condo that was once a symbol of our shared dreams, but is now just a quiet space filled with my own ambition. For years, I was a marketing strategist, the kind of woman who lived on coffee and deadlines, building a career while my husband, Ethan, built a life with someone else. He left me for a younger woman who he claimed understood him better, a cliché so painful it felt like a physical blow. But the universe has a funny way of balancing the scales, and the story of how I went from being the woman he left to the woman who signs his paychecks is one I think you'll want to hear. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. Our life, from the outside, was a curated masterpiece. We were the couple everyone wanted to be. Two driven professionals with a chic downtown apartment, a shared love for weekend getaways, and a 10-year plan that was, by all accounts, right on schedule. Ethan and I met in the final year of college. He was charming, ambitious, with a smile that could sell ice in a blizzard. I was the quiet, focused one, the strategist to his schmoozer. We were a perfect team, both in life and, initially, in our careers. We climbed our respective corporate ladders in parallel, cheering each other on. He was in sales, a natural-born closer, and I was in marketing, the one who built the campaigns that gave him the leads. We bought the condo, hosted the dinner parties, and posted the smiling vacation photos. We were the living embodiment of a Pinterest board titled Modern Success. But beneath the glossy surface, hairline cracks had begun to form. It started subtly. The late nights at the office became more frequent, his business trips longer. The easy intimacy we once shared was replaced by a polite distance. When I'd ask about his day, the answers became vague, punctuated by tired sighs. "You wouldn't get it, Si," he'd say, running a hand through his hair. "It's high-pressure stuff." I was a senior marketing strategist at a rival firm. I knew pressure, but I let it go, telling myself I was being paranoid. I told myself that successful marriages required sacrifice and that this was just a phase. The 7-year itch arriving a little early. The real warning sign, the one I can't believe I ignored, was his sudden need for understanding. It became his favorite word. He'd complain about his boss, his clients, the impossible targets he was expected to hit. I would offer solutions, strategies, and practical advice. That's how my brain works. "Maybe you could try repositioning the product's value proposition," I'd suggest. Or, "What if you leverage the Q4 data to show market growth potential?" He'd just shake his head, a look of profound disappointment on his face. "See, this is what I mean," he'd sigh. "I don't need a consultant, Sierra. I need a wife. I just need someone to listen, to understand." I tried. I really did. I learned to bite back my strategic impulses and instead offer sympathetic noises and comforting platitudes. But it felt unnatural, a role I was playing poorly. The distance between us grew into a chasm. He started mentioning a new colleague, a junior account manager named Chloe. She was, in his words, a breath of fresh air. She got the pressures of the sales floor. She understood the nuances of his work life. He talked about her constantly, her funny emails, her knack for calming down irate clients, her infectious positivity. He framed it all as professional admiration, and I, desperate to believe the best of the man I loved, accepted it. I even met her once at a company awards dinner. She was young, bubbly, and looked at Ethan with an awe that bordered on worship. She shook my hand with a grip that was a little too firm, her smile a little too bright. "It's so amazing to finally meet you," she'd gushed. "Ethan talks about you all the time." At the time, I thought it was sweet. Looking back, I see the malice glittering in her eyes. The perfect life was an illusion, and the stage was being set for its spectacular collapse. The unraveling began not with a bang, but with a scent. It was a cheap, cloyingly sweet floral perfume, the kind you might buy at a drugstore. It clung to Ethan's suit jacket one Tuesday evening when he came home late, smelling of celebratory champagne and something else. Something that wasn't my fragrance. "Big deal closed," he announced, kissing me on the cheek. The scent was overpowering. "Wow, you must have been celebrating with the whole office," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "Who wears gardenia perfume?" He stiffened just for a second before forcing a laugh. "No idea. The client probably. An older lady. You know how it is. I did know. I also knew that the scent was young, not something an older, established client would likely wear. It was the first tug on a thread that would soon unravel everything. After that, the signs were everywhere. A trail of breadcrumbs I had been too blind, or perhaps too unwilling to see. There were the classic red flags, of course. He started guarding his phone like it was a state secret, angling the screen away from me whenever a text came in. He changed his passwords, claiming it was a new company security protocol. The late nights at the office and last-minute business trips multiplied, always with plausible-sounding excuses that left no room for argument without me sounding like a jealous, nagging wife. He started caring more about his appearance, buying new clothes, getting expensive haircuts, and joining a gym, a commitment he'd scoffed at for years. He said it was about projecting success for his clients. I now know the only client he was trying to impress was Chloe. The financial whispers started next. I handled our joint finances, and I noticed odd expenses on our credit card statements, dinners at romantic restaurants I hadn't been to, charges from a boutique hotel on the other side of town, a surprisingly expensive piece of jewelry from a store we'd never shopped at. When I confronted him, he had an answer for everything. The dinners were client meetings. The hotel was for a sales conference he forgot to mention. The jewelry was a signing bonus gift for a new hire on his team. God, Sierra, can't you just trust me? He'd snap, turning my questions back on me. Why are you suddenly interrogating me? Is your job not stressful enough that you have to invent drama at home? He was an expert at making me feel like I was the one with the problem, that my suspicions were a symptom of my own insecurity, not his infidelity. My best friend Maya saw it clearly. Maya, a clinical psychologist, had a finely tuned detector for dishonesty. We'd be having coffee, and I'd recount the latest strange incident, framing it as another one of Ethan's quirks. He says he needs more space, that I'm suffocating him with questions, I told her one afternoon. Maya just stirred her latte, her gaze steady and compassionate. Sierra, she said gently, a man who has nothing to hide doesn't build walls. He builds windows. She never said the word affair, but she didn't have to. She planted the seed of doubt that I needed, the one that allowed me to finally stop making excuses for him and start paying attention to the truth that was staring me in the face. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place during a weekend he was supposedly on a men's fishing trip with colleagues. I was tidying up our home office when his personal tablet, which was usually locked down, buzzed with a notification. It was a photo shared to a cloud album I didn't know existed. The screen lit up for just a moment, but it was long enough. It was a picture of Ethan and Chloe, their arms around each other, laughing on a sun-drenched beach. He wasn't on a fishing trip. He was on a romantic getaway, funded by our joint account, with the woman who supposedly understood him. The whispers had become a roar. Seeing that photo was like a switch flipping in my brain. The fog of denial and self-doubt evaporated, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. Every lie, every excuse, every late night suddenly snapped into focus. The sweet, cheap perfume wasn't a client's. It was Chloe's. The guarded phone wasn't about company policy. It was about hiding their messages. The expensive dinners, the hotel, the jewelry, it was all for her. My husband, the man I had spent the last decade building a life with, was a stranger. And I had been a fool. My first instinct was pure, unadulterated rage. I wanted to smash the tablet, to call him and scream until my voice was raw, to pack a bag and leave before he ever had the chance to spin another lie. But then, a different instinct took over, the one that had made me a successful strategist. Stay calm, gather data, and form a plan. Emotion was a liability. I needed evidence, irrefutable proof that would leave him with no wiggle room, no way to gaslight me into believing I was crazy. For the rest of the weekend, I was a woman possessed. I became a forensic investigator in my own life. I dug through shared cloud accounts, old hard drives, and financial statements. The deeper I dug, the uglier it got. It wasn't just a fling. It was a full-blown relationship that had been going on for nearly a year. He had taken her on business trips, introducing her as his assistant. He had been paying for her apartment's utility bills. He had bought her a car. He was funding her entire life with our money. The betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was financial. It was a systematic dismantling of the life we had built together, brick by stolen brick. When he returned on Sunday evening, tanned and relaxed from his fishing trip, I was ready. I didn't scream or cry. I simply waited for him to settle onto the couch. Then I turned the tablet around and showed him the picture from the beach. "I hope the fishing was good," I said, my voice eerily calm. The color drained from his face. For the first time in our relationship, Ethan was speechless. He opened and closed his mouth like a fish, but no sound came out. The charming salesman, the master of excuses, had finally run out of words. The confrontation that followed was not the dramatic, tear-filled scene you see in movies. It was quiet, cold, and utterly devastating. He didn't even try to deny it. He just sat there, deflated, as I laid out the evidence I had collected. The dates, the expenses, the lies. Then came the part that broke me. He tried to justify it. "It just happened, Sierra," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I didn't mean for it to. But with Chloe, it's just easy. She gets me. She doesn't challenge everything I say. She just listens. She looks at me like I'm the most important person in the world." He delivered the final, crushing blow. "I love her, Sierra. And I want a divorce." There it was. The end of our marriage, delivered as casually as a weather report. He didn't just want a fling. He wanted to replace me. He wanted to erase our history and start a new one with her. That night I didn't fight. I didn't beg. A strange, icy calm had settled over me. I looked at the man on my couch, the man I had loved, and I felt nothing but a profound sense of emptiness. "Fine," I said. "Get a lawyer. You'll be hearing from mine." He seemed almost relieved. He packed a bag and left within the hour, walking out of my life and straight into hers, without a single look back. The unraveling was complete. All that was left was the wreckage. The first few weeks after Ethan left were a blur of tears, ice cream, and sleepless nights. The silence in the condo was deafening. Every corner held a memory, a ghost of the life we were supposed to have. I felt hollowed out, a failure. His words echoed in my mind on a relentless loop. "She gets me. She doesn't challenge everything I say." He had made me feel like my intelligence, my ambition, my very nature was a flaw, something to be escaped rather than celebrated. My self-esteem was in tatters. I took a week off work, unable to face the fluorescent lights and forced pleasantries of the office. I let myself fall apart completely, cocooned in grief. But you can only cry for so long before you get dehydrated. Maya was my rock during this time. She didn't offer empty platitudes. She just showed up with coffee, made sure I ate, and listened as I raged and sobbed. One evening, as I was starting my third pint of chocolate fudge brownie, she took the spoon out of my hand. "Okay, the grieving period is officially over," she declared. "You've mourned the man you thought he was. Now it's time to deal with the man he actually is. A lying, cheating, financial parasite. And you, Sierra Blaze, are a brilliant strategist. So it's time to strategize." It was the wake-up call I needed. She was right. I had built a career on turning problems into opportunities. My marriage had been a catastrophic failure, but the divorce could be a strategic victory. The tears stopped, and the spreadsheets began. I channeled all my grief and anger into a new project. Operation Divorce. I hired the most ruthless divorce lawyer I could find, a woman named Sophie, who had a reputation for filleting unfaithful husbands. Together, we went through the mountain of evidence I had collected with a fine-tooth comb. The secret credit cards, the hotel stays, the apartment bills, the car, every dollar Ethan had spent on Chloe from our joint accounts was documented, categorized and highlighted on a color-coded spreadsheet. It was a monument to his betrayal, and it was going to be my salvation. The legal battle was ugly, but I was prepared. Ethan, accustomed to me being the accommodating peacekeeping partner, was blindsided. He had expected me to roll over, to accept a quick, unfair settlement so he could be free to start his new life. He was wrong. He and his lawyer tried to argue that the spending was on legitimate business expenses. My spreadsheets proved otherwise. They tried to argue for half of everything, including my own savings and investments. Sophie shut them down, pointing to the marital asset dissipation clause in our state's laws. Ethan had intentionally squandered our shared money on his affair, and he was going to be held accountable. While the lawyers fought, I focused on myself. I threw myself back into my work with a ferocity I hadn't felt in years. Without the emotional drain of my failing marriage, my mind was sharp, my ideas were innovative, and my focus was absolute. I led a campaign that brought in the biggest client my firm had ever landed. I was promoted. I started working out, not to get a revenge body, but because the physical exertion was a release from my mental anguish. I reconnected with old friends, took up hiking, and rediscovered the woman I was before Ethan had tried to shrink me down into someone who understood him better. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. It was a resounding victory. The judge ordered Ethan to reimburse me for every cent he had spent on Chloe from our joint funds. I got the condo and the majority of our assets. He was left with his car, his clothes, and a mountain of personal debt. He and Chloe had to move out of their love nest and into a small rented apartment in a less desirable part of town. I didn't feel triumphant, just a quiet sense of justice. I had lost a husband, but I had found myself again. I was stronger, more resilient, and more determined than ever. The tears were over. The future was a blank spreadsheet, and I was ready to fill it in. 2 years passed. 2 years of healing, growth, and relentless focus on my career. I had transformed the quiet condo into my personal sanctuary, exorcising the ghosts of my past with new furniture and vibrant art. At work, I continued to climb. My success with the big client win had put me on the map, and I moved from senior strategist to a management role, leading my own team. I was good at it. I was decisive, fair, and I had a knack for seeing the bigger picture. Life was stable, peaceful, and blessedly free of drama. Ethan and Chloe were a distant memory, a closed chapter in a book I no longer read. They had fallen completely off my radar, and I preferred it that way. Then, one Tuesday, an email landed in my inbox that sent a jolt through my system. It was from HR. The subject line read, "Final round interview, Director of Digital Marketing." My company was hiring for a new director position, a major step up that would put the incumbent in charge of the entire digital marketing strategy for North America. It was a huge opportunity, and I was on the short list of internal candidates being considered. The email confirmed my interview slot for the following Monday. But that wasn't what made my heart hammer against my ribs. It was the attachment, a list of the external candidates who were also in the final round. And there, second from the top, was a name I never thought I'd see in a professional context again. Ethan. I stared at the name, my blood turning to ice. It had to be a mistake, a coincidence, but the attached resume confirmed it. It was him. After our divorce, he had bounced around a couple of mid-level sales jobs, never quite regaining his footing. According to his resume, he had recently pivoted into marketing management, and now, through some cruel twist of fate, he was applying for a job at my company. A job that, if he got it, would make him my peer. A job that, if I got it, would make me his boss. A wave of nausea washed over me. The universe couldn't be this twisted, could it? My first instinct was to call HR and recuse myself from the process. The idea of working in the same building as him, let alone being his boss, was unthinkable. It felt like a violation, a dredging up of a past I had worked so hard to bury. I almost picked up the phone. But then, Maya's voice echoed in my head, "Don't let him shrink you." Running away would be letting him win. It would be an admission that he still had power over me. A different feeling started to bubble up, pushing past the shock and anxiety. Righteous indignation. Who was he to waltz into my professional life, the one sacred space I had rebuilt from the ashes of our marriage? How dare he think he could compete on my level? I looked at his resume again, this time with the cold, analytical eye of a hiring manager. It was decent, but not spectacular. He had padded it with buzzwords, but the results were mediocre. He didn't have the strategic depth, the data-driven mindset, or the leadership experience required for this role. I knew, objectively, that I was the more qualified candidate. A slow smile spread across my face. This wasn't a crisis. It was an opportunity to prove, once and for all, who the real strategist was. I wasn't going to run. I was going to walk into that interview on Monday and earn the job that I deserved. And if Ethan happened to be one of the candidates I beat, well, that was just a bonus. The interview was no longer just a career step. It was the final move in a chess game I didn't even know I was still playing, and I was going to checkmate him. The week leading up to the interview was a masterclass in compartmentalization, During the day, I was the consummate professional, preparing my presentation, analyzing market data, and refining my 90-day plan. I studied the company's annual report, identified key growth opportunities, and developed a comprehensive digital strategy that was both innovative and actionable. I was leaving nothing to chance. At night, I allowed myself to process the emotional fallout. The thought of seeing Ethan again was daunting. What would he look like? Would he be with Chloe? Would seeing him dredge up all the old pain? I confided in Maya, who helped me reframe the situation. "This isn't a personal reunion," she said. "It's a business transaction. He is candidate B, you are candidate A. Your only job is to demonstrate why A is superior to B." Monday arrived, bright and clear. I chose my outfit with care. A sharp navy blue power suit that radiated confidence. I walked into the corporate headquarters, my head held high. I was led to the executive waiting area, a sleek space with leather chairs and modern art. And there he was. Ethan was sitting in a chair by the window, nervously fidgeting with his tie. He looked older. The easy charm had been replaced by a weary tension. There were fine lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. He hadn't seen me yet. I took a deep breath, straightened my shoulders, and walked over to the coffee station. As I poured myself a glass of water, I said casually, "Ethan? Wow, small world." He looked up, and his jaw practically hit the floor. He stared at me, his eyes wide with disbelief. It was clear he had absolutely no idea that I worked there, let alone that I was a candidate for the same position. "Sierra," he stammered, scrambling to his feet. What are you doing here?" "I work here," I said, my voice calm and even. "I lead the brand strategy team. I'm here for the director interview." The sequence of emotions that flashed across his face was a sight to behold. Shock, followed by confusion, then dawning horror, and finally, a pathetic attempt at bravado. "Oh right, wow, that's great. Good for you," he mumbled, unable to meet my eyes. The power dynamic had shifted so completely, so instantaneously, that the air between us crackled with it. He was flustered, off balance, and suddenly looked very, very small. My name was called first. I walked into the boardroom and delivered the presentation of my life. I was confident, articulate, and passionate. I knew my stuff, and it showed. I laid out my vision for the company's digital future with such clarity and authority that I could see the panel of VPs nodding in approval. I nailed every question they threw at me. I walked out of that room knowing, with absolute certainty, that I had earned the job. As I left, I saw Ethan being called in. He shot me a panicked look, a silent plea for what? I had no idea. I just gave him a small, polite smile and kept walking. I didn't need to wish him luck. His luck had just run out. I received the call 2 days later. As I expected, the job was mine. The VP who offered it to me mentioned in passing how impressed they were with my vision compared to the other candidates. One guy in particular, the VP chuckled, seemed completely unprepared. It was like he'd seen a ghost. I just smiled. The following Monday, an all-staff email went out, announcing my promotion to Director of Digital Marketing. My first official duty was to review the budget and team structure for the department I now led, and there, on the list of departmental managers who would now be reporting directly to me, was a new name, a recent hire who had been brought on while the director position was vacant. Ethan, the new marketing manager. He had apparently been given a lower-level management job after failing to get the director role. The Monday morning surprise wasn't just that I had gotten the job. It was that my ex-husband, the man who had left me because I was too much of a consultant and not enough of an understanding wife, was now my direct report. My first team meeting as director was in the main boardroom. I stood at the head of the table, a position that felt both exhilarating and entirely natural. My new team of managers filed in, and I greeted each of them warmly. Ethan was the last to arrive. He avoided my gaze, sinking into a chair at the far end of the table, his face pale. He looked like a man walking to his own execution. I started the meeting by laying out my vision for the department, my expectations for the team, and the key performance indicators we would be focusing on for the next quarter. I was professional, direct, and completely in command. I made a point of treating Ethan exactly like any other member of my team. I didn't single him out, nor did I ignore him. When it came time to assign projects, I looked directly at him. "Ethan," I said, my tone crisp and businesslike. "I see from the handover notes that you're managing the Apex account. I've reviewed the Q2 performance reports, and frankly, the numbers are underwhelming. The strategy seems unfocused. I want a full strategic review on my desk by Friday, complete with a SWOT analysis and a revised action plan for the next 6 months. I've scheduled a one-on-one with you for Friday afternoon to go over it in detail." A hushed silence fell over the room. It was a tough, demanding assignment with a tight deadline. It was also a perfectly reasonable request for a new director to make of a manager whose portfolio was underperforming. Ethan just nodded, unable to speak, his knuckles white as he gripped his pen. The week that followed was, I must admit, deeply satisfying. Ethan was a wreck. He was used to being the smooth talker, the guy who could charm his way out of any problem. But you can't charm a spreadsheet. His attempts to do the strategic work I demanded were clumsy and superficial. He was a salesman, not a strategist, and it showed. He sent me 3 drafts of the review, and I sent each one back with extensive pointed feedback. "This is purely descriptive," I wrote in the margins of one. "Where is the data to support these assertions?" On another, "The opportunities section is vague. I need concrete, measurable initiatives." Our one-on-one meeting on Friday was the final quiet nail in the coffin of his ego. He sat opposite me in my new corner office, the one with the panoramic view of the city. He was a diminished figure, stripped of all his former arrogance. He stumbled through his presentation, unable to defend his weak strategy. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I simply dismantled his work, piece by piece, with cold, hard logic. "This isn't good enough, Ethan," I said finally, my voice calm. "I need a manager who can think strategically, who can back up their plans with data, and who can deliver results. This is not it. I'm putting you on a formal performance improvement plan. You have 30 days to demonstrate a significant change. I suggest you use them wisely." He just sat there, utterly defeated. Then he looked at me, a flicker of the old Ethan in his eyes. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" he muttered. I leaned back in my chair and looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time without any lingering pain or anger. All I felt was a distant pity. "Enjoying it?" "No, Ethan, I'm not enjoying it. This is just business. You were right about one thing all those years ago. I am a consultant. I am a strategist. I solve problems. And right now you are a problem. Your performance is a problem." I paused, letting the words hang in the air. "And as for understanding, I understand perfectly. I understand that performance is all that matters here. And yours isn't up to par." He resigned 2 weeks later, unable to meet the demands of the performance plan. He couldn't handle the pressure. He couldn't handle working for a woman who saw right through him. He couldn't handle the fact that I had not only survived without him, but I had soared. On his last day, he left his ID badge on his desk and walked out without saying goodbye. I heard through the grapevine that he and Chloe broke up a few months after that. The financial strain, combined with his professional humiliation, was apparently too much for their easy relationship to handle. He ended up taking a low-level sales job at a small firm across town. As for me, I thrived. I rebuilt my department, hired talented people, and we broke every performance record in the company's history. My corner office became a symbol not of revenge, but of resilience. It was a testament to the fact that the best revenge isn't loud and dramatic. It's quiet, professional, and undeniable. It's building a life and a career so successful that the person who hurt you becomes an irrelevant footnote in your own incredible story. They didn't get you? Fine. Let them watch you get everything you ever wanted, all on your own terms.